Canada's fighting back against Donald Trump's defiant stance on trade. A day after tough new tariffs kicked in on steel and aluminum imports, the Trudeau government has launched a counterattack on several fronts. In addition to filing official complaints with NAFTA and the World Trade Organization, Ottawa has begun a charm offensive on American airwaves. And if all of that fails, it's also planning a bailout of potentially saving thousands of jobs. Katie Simpson has the details.
The government is taking its message to millions of Americans, including Donald Trump.
What do you feel as if the president wants from you in putting these tariffs out there?
I don't know.
The Prime Minister taped an interview today for the top-rated Sunday political talk show Meet the Press to push Canada's anti-tariff argument. The Foreign Affairs Minister will echo him on CNN's Sunday morning talk show and when she returns to Washington on Monday.
This is a moment when it is important for us to be clear and firm.
This is the start of Canada's lobbying campaign to kill the American tariffs.
This will be a truly pan-Canadian effort involving, obviously, all members of the government.
We're going to keep talking. We're going to keep listening.
The renewed offensive comes as Trudeau is vowing to defend jobs at home.
And I want you to know that just as we fought for you before, we're going to continue to fight for you every day.
The Prime Minister made a direct appeal to the steel and aluminum industries, asking for patience. That's not enough for the NDP.
Will this government sit down with labour and industry immediately and put together a package that supports workers, protects their jobs, and defends their communities?
Chrystia Freeland is not committing to any aid packages yet, but during an interview with CBC Radio's The House, she appeared open to the idea.
We're going to stand with our workers and our companies, and this is also something that we're discussing and will continue to discuss with the province.
Uncertainty may become the new normal for Canadian steel and aluminum producers. Trump appears satisfied with the way he's shaking up the global trading order and mused again today about tearing up NAFTA.
But I wouldn't mind seeing a separate deal with Canada where you have one type of product, so to speak, and a separate deal with Mexico. These are two very different countries.
The United States imposed the tariffs. We imposed them back. Meanwhile, NAFTA's sort of out there bubbling away. Let's talk about this and the Canadian government's approach to all this. We'll start with you, Rubina.
Well, some people are calling it a trade war. Isn't this what a classic trade war is? You raise tariffs here, we raise tariffs there. Mm-hmm. It's just going to complicate what is already a really integrated system. There's tens of thousands of jobs in Canada that are affected by this. And one thing that people aren't talking about much is that the United States has more to lose than Canada because they buy a lot of our resources. And so if things get more expensive for consumers there, they're the ones that are going to feel it in their pocketbook, if you think about it from a personal finance perspective, more than maybe Canadian consumers might feel it. I think they're really doing themselves a disservice rather than the other way around.
Jeannie?
I agree. I mean, we kind of knew it was coming. He had given us a moratorium to May 31st. Some people kind of already priced it into the market, but he followed through with it. So he can say to his base, look, I said I was going to do it, and I did. Yeah, I mean, we can predict it's going to hurt us, it's going to hurt them. I think we just have to monitor it very closely and see what the real impact is and bring it to everybody's attention, to the president's attention, and hopefully behind the scenes as well. We've got some really experienced and smart people behind the scenes on both sides, and hopefully they can kind of help steer this through to a logical conclusion rather than the situation we're in now, which is just chaos.
Well, as you say, Trump going ahead, presumably, as you say, having warned us, but those within his own party. I mean, Mitch McConnell, he can just, for a man who doesn't show much emotion, he's on the verge of apoplexy. You can tell that in his interviews. Let's listen to our Foreign Affairs Minister, Chrystia Freeland, when she talks about how this came about and what their strategy is.
This is $16.6 billion of retaliation. This is the strongest trade action Canada has taken in the post-war era. This is a very strong response. It is a proportionate response. It is perfectly reciprocal. But I really want to assure you and to assure Canadians this is a very strong Canadian action in response to a very bad U.S. decision.
been back and forth between Ottawa and Washington, saying that throughout these negotiations, particularly around NAFTA, they have hoped for the best, but prepared for the worst. They certainly seem to have prepared for it with the tariffs that they have introduced. You said it is a war, or it has been called a war. Is it a war? And if so, who wins a war? Jeannie?
I mean, it seems like a war now, right? They kind of, lobbed a volley, and we've lobbed one back. And I mean, hopefully it'll be a short war, and that people can come to their senses soon once they start seeing the real impact on consumers on both sides of the border.
But what's the way out?
I don't know what the way out is. And the thing is, this seems very I feel like it's very unfair. We are not deserving of this. Even if you think about, the United States when it comes to their military efforts across the world, we're always sort of shoulder to shoulder with them. We've been a great ally. I mean, the U.S. steelworkers put out an announcement yesterday saying, why are you not punishing those countries that have sort of bad practices and predatory predatory behavior? Countries like China, countries that are, not the EU, not Canada, not Mexico, which has always been very much working with the United States to the best of their ability. So it just feels unfair, it feels undeserving, and it feels really irresponsible because for example, we hear all the time, cars are built here in Canada, but the parts come from the United States. So part of the car is going to have higher tariffs, and then how do you figure that all out? I'm sure they will. But it just makes the process so much more complicated, which adds costs for the consumer.
Maybe Donald Trump thought we were an easy target to bully. But now we're pushing back, though. So.
Well, yeah, but it's the consumer that's going to feel that pushback, right? I mean, we put tariffs on American products. So if you have your favorite marmalade from the United States, then you're going to pay more for that. So
if it comes in a tin can?
Well, yeah, exactly. Jacqueline Hansen of CBC Business Unit went and talked to a gentleman in Whitby who sells motorhomes. So they may build them in Canada, but the aluminum they build in the United States, but it's Canadian aluminum, goes back and forth across the border. Let's talk about the real effect that this could have on consumers. Jeannie, you want to start us off on that?
I mean, I don't know if we'll see an immediate impact on pricing. Hopefully there won't be any price gouging happening. But definitely I think that some people will look at their parts and where they come from, and this will definitely have an immediate impact on their cost. Maybe they'll try to source from Canada, but yeah, in the meantime, I think at the end of the day, the consumers are going to end up paying the bill for sure.
Should people be reading labels more and doing their research?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, and companies have hedged their bets. I mean, it's not like immediately, the price of an aluminum can is going to go up 3 times. That wouldn't make economic sense. I mean, companies, first of all, are well aware of Donald Trump's sort of behavior when it comes to trying to be more nationalistic in the way that he's protecting his own businesses. So they're well prepared. But over the long term, if we continue to see tariffs on products going across the border, then yeah, things like a soda pop can is going to get more expensive. Playing cards are going to get more expensive. We've already heard from the beer industry saying that they think this is terrible for their industry and for the cost that they're going to have to pass on to consumer. And we'll see less products. There was a time, I remember 25 years ago, where you could only go to the U.S. to find certain products. But with globalization, those products now easily come over the border. We can buy them in our grocery stores. Those products may not be available anymore because they're too expensive to export.